button and that button, and away we go. All right, Matthew, first of all, tell me about the genesis of the book, how you got involved writing it, and the topic that you've explored here.
All right. This book, The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's Greatest General Managers, came out of a 50-part series I was doing for Inside Hockey, an online magazine. This was during the lockout of 2012-2013, and I thought, well, if there's no season, what am I going to write about? So I had been working on this concept of who were the greatest hockey general managers, and I was using the same rating system I used for my first book, Bench Bosses, the NHL's Coaching Elite, which came out 2 years ago. So I ran every single NHL general manager from 1917 up to the present time through the system, and then I started writing these articles. It took me 50 weeks, week after week I wrote these articles. It was like 2 or 3 pages. And by the end of the 2013 season, I had finished the series. And then I went on to other projects. My first book came out, and then I was trying to get a second book out on the 50 greatest pro basketball head coaches, but I couldn't get a publishing deal. And I thought I didn't want to wait, and I thought I had these articles, and I told my agent, how about I flesh them out, beef them up, and make a quick little book out of this, out of these articles? And my agent encouraged me to do so. And starting from July 1st of last year up to June 30th of this year, I just worked around the clock. I was calling up as many active and former NHL general managers who were featured in my book as humanly possible. I got interviews. I had 17 hours of interviews with like Lou Lamoriello, GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Doug Wilson of the San Jose Sharks, Jim Rutherford of the 2-time Stanley Cup winning Pittsburgh Penguins, Doug Armstrong of the Blues, like retired GMs like Neil Smith, who led the Rangers to their Stanley Cup win in '94, Jim Devellano, who was a very big help, Dean Lombardi, and I talked to them about their great trades. We talked about their managerial methods, the philosophies of how to manage a team, what type of players to look for. What are their philosophies regarding trades and free agent signings, and we talked about some of the greatest trades in NHL history, like Harry Sinden told me about the Brad Park Phil Esposito trade. Lou Lamoriello, we talked to me about how he built the New Jersey Devils, made them from basement dwellers into Stanley Cup champions. We talked about great coaching hires, how they found the late Brian Murray, who sadly died before this book came out, talked to me about how he discovered Mike Babcock, how he helped build the Florida Panthers to their Stanley Cup finals and only their third season of existence. George McPhee talked to me about, how he was building the Las Vegas Golden Knights. It was just incredible first-hand material, and the end result is The Art of the Dealers, the NHL's Greatest General Managers.
What was the criteria, or was there a common denominator when you talked to all of those guys? Was there a single, or was there a common denominator amongst them that separated the good ones from the average ones?
The fact that they were always craving a challenge. They didn't believe in standing pat. They were always not just improving in terms team in terms of players, and trying to improve a front office philosophy, stimulating very good, solid debate, amongst the scouts and the assistant general managers about what talents are we looking for in terms of draft choices, making trades and free agents. All of them always believed they didn't want yes men. They didn't want enablers. What they wanted was a good cross-range, broad spectrum of debate. I mean, Brian Burke talked to me about the late Pat Quinn, may God rest his soul. And he said Quinn loved good, solid, rollicking debate. He wanted minds to match him. And Brian Burke said that taught him many a good lesson, when he became a general manager in his own right, about, getting that full range of opinion and stimulating the subordinates, to get better ideas, always better ideas. Let's keep setting that bar higher and higher and higher.
Matthew DiBiase is our guest, talking about The Art of the Dealers, a new book pertaining to National Hockey League GMs. Do you have to have played the game to be a successful GM? And I guess obviously the answer is no, but are you surprised compared to maybe basketball, baseball for sure, that more ex-players are hockey GMs than in the other sports?
Well, I think it helps, but then in the early years, like Tommy Gorman, who was like for a time was the greatest general manager of all time at the very beginning. He was present at the creation of the NHL exactly almost 100 years ago. I mean, he never played the game at all. He was he was a copy boy it was like a page boy in the Canadian Parliament. He worked in a newspaper, never played a lick. He was no hockey player, and yet he had that magical eye for talent. He was connected. He knew how to find those players, and the original Ottawa Senators, not the present-day Ottawa Senators, but the original Ottawa Senators were hockey's first great dynasty, and he never played a single game.
The greatest GM in NHL history, is it Sam Pollock?
That is correct. And an amazing, in only 14 seasons of being a general manager, and yet he annihilated all competition. He became number one in only 14 seasons, whereas the number two, Jack Adams, it took him. He was there for 35 years. Think about it. He breaks Jack Adams' record in only half the time it took Jack Adams to make his mark. You talk about perfection. In my opinion, right now, the General Manager of the Year award doesn't have a name. All the other hockey awards are named after a player or an executive or a coach. And I don't know why they haven't named the General Manager of the Year award after Sam Pollock. They should. He was the greatest of all time. He was a genius.
Well, he was the first name that came to my list. Jack Adams, I think would have been a consideration. Bill Torrey, Glenn Sather, some names that I would throw out.
Glenn Sather. Yeah, Glenn Sather is among the top 10. The late Frank Selke of the Montreal Canadiens, who was Pollock's predecessor. He helped develop the Toronto. He was Conn Smythe's deputy, and he helped develop the Toronto Maple Leafs into hockey's flagship franchise. And then when he left Toronto to go to Montreal, he made the Canadiens into and the NHL's flagship franchise. And he made Sam Pollock possible. He developed Scotty Bowman. Cliff Fletcher worked under Mr. Frank Selke. A lot of great future hockey execs, cut their spurs working for him.
Matthew, thanks for this. All the best with your book.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace, and thank you, and God bless you, and happy Thanksgiving.
There we go. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Talk to you later, Matthew.
Thank you.
Good luck with your book.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.